All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We are here on episode number 231 for Palantir Weekly. I know it has been a couple of weeks. I've been a little busy. To my defense, I was at AIPCon, and then it was my dad's birthday last week. But we are back. We got plenty of stuff to talk about. I'm here today with Mr. Amir from Type F Capital, and Dom is back. It's been about a month, Dom. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Glad to finally get some time back, and that worked out that you're doing it Saturday tonight. And yeah.
And there we go. We are live. So there's a lot to talk about. A lot of different things have happened over the past couple of weeks. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think we'll get started with this because this guy, the OG of OGs, the guy that bought it at 7 and believed in it when no one did, Mr. Arnaldo.
Yep. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, welcome, Arnie. Welcome.
You know how waking up I am from the fact that I had been waiting for 10 years, but on the wrong StreamYard link.
Oh.
And I was like, how is it possible? Like, Amit is so punctual.
How'd you get the wrong StreamYard link?
Because I had it already open on the browser.
Oh, okay.
And I was just waiting without realizing I didn't put the new one.
Dude, well, I'm happy you're here because we obviously appreciate an OG being with us. So let's get started into our first topic right here. Stock hit new all-time highs, closed below it, but we did hit 143. I think we actually hit 144 on Tuesday. I guess the question, let's start off with you, Amir. What was your take on the stock getting into the 140s, 300, I think $30 billion market cap?
Well, I kind of found out after the fact, you know, when you start to visit X and you see all the posts coming back about the stock being a bubble. I think despite the hit piece on New York Times, I'm sure we'll get into that. It kind of like strengthened Palantir's position. People are like starting to realize that, like, damn, this company is actually involved everywhere. And I think we will start to see that these coming quarters now, how Palantir's business is starting to accelerate on all fronts, not just the government, which has been the topic in the New York Times hit piece, but also commercial. So, you know, I'm scared to touch any shares. I know a lot of people get kind of frustrated and freaked out when they see like new all-time highs. They're scared of buying. Well, to be fair, I haven't been buying any shares above $70, so and I won't until it trades, you know, closer to fair value, which it might or might not. But I mean, this company, like, I'm scared to touch any shares, even though it's like twice. Like if you cut it in half, it would be at fair value. So it is very overvalued to me, but it's just that kind of company. Like you don't really know what kind of numbers they will put up. Like we can't really grasp the amount of acceleration that they are having, like properly, or even like outside of Palantir, like this AI revolution. No one really knows. So at this point, I'm just holding and seeing all-time highs. I wouldn't be surprised if we have another one in the near term here, as things are really starting to escalate on a geopolitical level.
Dom, we were talking about this thing at $7-8. I was watching actually our first interview we did back in like December 2021, or I think it was January 2022. And, you know, the stock's at 140 now. I mean, what is your reaction to seeing a 20x happen in front of you?
I mean, it's crazy looking at my shares. It's crazy to look at where we've been, and glad I continued to dollar cost average. But I do have a shocker for you guys, and don't be mad at me. At 125, I watched one of Tom Nash's videos, and actually two. One at 125 the first time, I had to sell because I was moving money over from a 401k to another 401k for an employer. So I had to close out all those shares regardless. Like there was just no option otherwise. And that was right when it went back from 125 to 60, like 65 or whatever in that 3-week period. So I waited and then bought all that back at 65. Very fortunate. That's, luck of the draw. I'm normally not that kind of investor. Anyone who knows me. But when it went back up to 125 again, I was like, I just don't see it going higher than that. And so I took just 30% out, just like Tom said in his video, is like, if you've made, 20x and above, it's not a bad idea to take 30% out. And if 70% goes, you're still happy. 70% of your money's going. But I haven't been able to get back in below 125. So this could be a great example of why you gamble and you don't do that. I mean, does it come back down, or do we keep, eventually there has to be a correction, but I don't know when it is.
Well, I think that's been the story for, first of all, you took profit. I mean, people take profits, right? It is what it is. And no one should apologize for that. But that's the whole reason we invest, right? At one point to generate those profits. But the interesting thing is all of us have been wondering since it started going from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 to 8. Okay, and the one time we got it was when Trump announced reciprocal tariffs, but that was the whole market. That was not Palantir independent of the market. And I don't know where the future lies for if Palantir independently gets a massive correction again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Arnie,
I mean, we
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, like we talk about, ever since he started running, just to Amit's point, like there's not been a single negative catalyst. Like this hit piece did nothing to Palantir. International commercial is the only drag, and even that looks to be changing in the near future. Like what's going to bring? Like, okay, I believe it's overvalued. Let's get that like straight. But what's going to bring this stock down? Like they are just executing, and I feel like Robinhood is doing something similar where there's just too much momentum. Like it's really dangerous to gamble on the stock price going down or going short on Palantir just on valuation because the company is just too strong. Go ahead, Arnie.
Yeah, Arnie, your thoughts on all-time highs now? Yeah, you're not muted. You're good. You're good.
Okay, I think briefly my impression could be summarized by this meme that, to be honest, we need to be aware that we're not talking about a happy topic, but I think this meme tends to encapsulate essentially what is happening. Like Iran is about to find out why Palantir trades at 300x earnings.
Can we just say this was kind of funny though, dude? This meme went so viral.
It's so good. You should use the original one. You gave the like copy paster the credit now.
Yeah, as soon as someone thought of this, it got copied so many times.
I mean, you realize a meme is good when there are like 300 clones. But apart from that, like we need to be aware that the background is not happy for that. We're not advocating for war, but this tweet encapsulates the moment of reckoning that people are having into Palantir not just being out there doing shady stuff, is actually there to do very critical stuff and is getting the recognition for that. And that is happening, I think, on the battlefield, but also outside the battlefield. And I think that is very, very important for us as investors, because meanwhile, there is also an entire ecosystem of players that are watching very closely, both in the defense side and also outside. So what is really happening right now is Palantir having its moment of glory. And this is truly a unique opportunity to transform that business brand into value. Palantir had a moment of peak virality back in 2020, but back then the narrative was more Palantir is a meme stock, so it had a kind of toxic visibility. Right now, it is benefiting from very positive reputation. Like it or not, the reputation is actually very strong and actually positive because it is aligned to the true values of the United States. So this is gradually affecting both the commercial side and the government side. I'm putting a lot of both because that that really shows how I'm confident into seeing how the dynamic is really changing. And when the dynamic changes so much, you need to be aware of the status of the things as of today. And it is fair to say that given what we see in terms of numbers, is actually very expensive. But the strength of a dynamic is also so strong that is always very dangerous to be focused into one point and say, oh, it's overvalued. Is how strong the derivative is, and that is insanely strong. So now we see earnings like PE very, very high, almost 170x free cash flow. So that is high. But what if the free cash flow actually doubles very soon from here? Given the consumption, given the reputation, the big brands keep being attracted to Palantir. So but those are the truly important questions, much more than actually what's the actual P right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know your thoughts on this, Arnie. Like someone asked in the question earlier, was that 30% really life changing? And I was like, well, it was really substantial. It could help me get some more shares. And someone said do covered calls instead of that, but I don't know enough in that wheelhouse. But as far as like the confidence level that I have, that even at 142, I feel that we still from here could, at least go 3 to 5x here in the next 5 years because of the expansion, because of the massive amounts of network effects, and we know their business model. We know how it can expand, unlike any other kind of pricing model we've seen in a software company. So it's that kind of level thing about greed. Like we could just essentially just keep adding more and more at these levels, and still you're going to get a great return, I feel, in 5 to 7 years. What do you think?
Amir, you want to take that?
Essentially
the frame is $1 trillion in the cards over the next, call it 5 to 10 years, which would be a 3x from here.
And I think for sure.
I think, well, I don't know for sure, but I think we are looking good to reach 1 trillion. I don't know if it's within 5 years to reach about 1 trillion, but the way to look at it and to see like, well, how much more can Palantir really grow? Like, just look, like they only have 800 customers. Do you know 800 is nothing in the grand scheme of things?
Of course.
And I'm sure we'll get into it soon, but the way that Palantir is starting to present themselves to the real world is basically, if you go to AIPCon 7, where Alex Karp had his like speech, is like, we just want speed. Negotiate with us. He's like telling their clients, like, scam us just so that we can prove to you how much better we are than everyone else. Like A/B test. The train is leaving the station. Either you're with us, and then he said something funny. He's like, we can change your unit economics to be close to ours. And I was like, damn, that is a cool thing to say, like in front of the world, like world's most like biggest and most important companies.
Well, one thing I'll say before we continue. So I was at AIPCon and I was listening to that. This was the first keynote, like 11-minute opening speech I've seen Karp do that was specifically tailored to the customer. I mean, I think the kind of idea or the vibe for this speech, and I think that we'll see that in his further media appearances, is, hey, like, we are winning at such an extreme level, rule of 83, all this stuff, and our software can help you win like that as well. Because now, in order to get that next level of S-curve of growth, you've got to get your existing clients to also believe we should be adopting more of Palantir's suite of software to be able to have our unit economics look like that. And it was the first time I've seen him it's almost like he was talking one-on-one to the customer. You know, he always does that, but this time it was very like, guys, this is happening. The undertone to the entire event, given the whole New York Times stuff happened, we'll talk more about that, was we're so good that these guys hate us because we're that good, because we're helping the government actually become efficient. So you guys should be that good, and you're either going to do it with us or without us, but it's going to be really hard to do it without us.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting, because the first 6 AIPcons, it's more about getting the name of Palantir out there, and then for this one, it's like, yeah, you guys know that we are the best. Here is how we will help you become the best as well. And another quote from that is like, aren't you guys tired of analysts waking up on the wrong side who didn't get into your company? And it's like, damn, it's going off. And even during the CNBC interview with Sarah Eisen, he's like, dude, the government aren't buying from me because of my speeches or because of they like me. And then he's sitting next to a brand new client. He's like, this guy doesn't even want to buy from me, but he has to because I'm the best. I'm like, damn, dude, he's cold, dude. But yeah, okay. So to the question about $1 trillion, I think either way you slice it, Palantir is still just at the beginning. Like, this is nowhere near like maturity. Like, this is just getting started still. I don't know about the timing. 5 years or not, I think the prospects for Palantir's future are bright. But yeah, only 800 clients. I mean, it's just getting started from here.
So that's my point. Like you said, you're not adding to any until 70, but it could maybe not reach 70 and you could miss out on quite a bit. Are you okay with that, I guess?
No, I'm buying at fair value, which right now would be around 70. But by next quarter, like my fair value could be 150. Like who knows? Like you never know.
Yeah,
with
yeah. I
Palantir.
see what you're
But
saying.
to answer your question, that only makes sense. This kind of reasoning only makes sense if Palantir was the only publicly traded company that is available to us. But that's just not the case. Like we have all of these companies available to us, and you as an investor, it is up to you to allocate that capital where you believe you will get the biggest return. Now, do I believe that I'll get the biggest return today by investing at Palantir double where the fair value is? Like that's not the way I invest. Some people like to be 100% in one company. That's
No,
fine.
you bring a great point, because something else that I've kind of struggled with was, okay, I still have I have most of this money on the sideline. Tesla is, I mean, if you look at like the S curve and what people are doubting and not thinking about with Tesla, if they really do pull off full self-driving autonomy and robots, you know, I've seen people put crazy price targets out there, but we don't even know what that predictive model looks like, right? You can't even almost fathom how game-changing that is for the world. So to your point of, well, there are other investments that maybe could grow faster in that shorter amount of time.
Yeah. Arnie, real quick on this, and then we'll move on to New York Times.
You know, what's the common thing about all the AIPCons and all, in general, Palantir events is they're very, very consistent in saying, don't speak, don't tell, show. And actually, what's the better proof for clients than showing that Palantir itself is delivering insane margin growth while having insane margin acceleration? Like, that's the holy grail for every business, especially when you do it in a combined way, because it means essentially you're obtaining infinite ROIC from your marginal investment. Essentially, you invest almost no money and you have insane results. That's essentially what everybody wants. So that's the premise. And I believe that until Palantir can show this rule of 40, that should be renamed as a rule of Palantir, a rule of 80, it's very, very hard to break the narrative. And the narrative now is so strong that it's creating this feedback loop between the brand reputation, the actual results supporting a very strong valuation. Personally, I believe right now it is obviously way harder to get outsized returns compared with the S&P 500, compared with buying Palantir at half the price, but that's essentially math. On my side, I believe it is always difficult to generalize something like you should not buy Palantir or you should cut 30% off. I think it really depends on the composition of your portfolio. Let's say you have been adding 500 euros every month and your position is just 5-10% of a portfolio. There is nothing wrong, in my opinion. Just keep adding very regularly, because you accept, okay, I'm not here to try to outperform the market by being very good at the timing. I'm just here as a little ant to keep building my position. If you are a more speculative guy that want to get outside the return when they deploy capital, that is a different kind of job. And in that case, maybe it makes sense to adjust the position, but it is adjusting the position regarding how it fits to the overall portfolio. So that's why I think it's never too good to say, oh, all the conversation gravitates towards having cut 30% of the position or not, because it depends on what stage you are in life, what are the other opportunities that you clearly see in the market, and how balanced you also want to your position to be. Because one thing is living every day with a portfolio that is just balanced and you can set it aside in your mind. One thing is having all your portfolio in 1-2 stocks, and essentially you are getting a very, very high entrepreneurial risk in investing like that. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, let's move on to the New York Times and what's been going on. So to catch everyone up to speed, about 2 weeks ago, the New York Times came out, or I think 3 weeks ago, with an article that said essentially Palantir is creating a master surveillance database and they are spying on American citizens. Palantir responded by saying the recently published article by the New York Times is blatantly untrue. Palantir never collects data to unlawfully surveil Americans, and our Foundry platform employs granular security protections. If the facts were on its side, the New York Times would not have needed to twist the truth. Then Ted Mabry, the global head of commercial, put out a post inviting the New York Times editorial board to visit the offices in New York or DC to spend about 4 hours with Palantir and learn about the actual architecture of the software and how quite literally they cannot build something that would be surveilling Americans, or that their software philosophically is not integrated with those tool sets to be able to surveil Americans. The New York Times then accepted the invitation. I don't know if the meeting has happened yet. If it does happen, we'll probably get some updates on that. But then a week after, Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sent a letter to Palantir basically demanding for more information from what the New York Times had reported in terms of Palantir creating a master surveillance database. Let's get started with you, Amir. What was your take on this entire saga? Do you think this will have any impact on the stock? The stock is up about $15 since this news officially broke. And is this a headwind for Palantir going forward in the future, or is this ultimately going to be a nothing burger?
I think even the last or the one before that, Palantir Weekly, we all made some comments about, guys, have you been noticing a lot of videos coming up that are like anti-Palantir, how Palantir is surveilling? And we were all agreeing, like, yeah, there are a lot of big YouTube channels starting to make a lot of videos. And that was just a precursor. Then we got the New York Times article, and now we got like senators speaking out. And you start to wonder, like, where did this spring from? Because I don't believe that it will have an impact on the share price, simply because it's not rooted in reality or truth. And it's very easy because Palantir is very transparent in their control process, like what do they call it? I can't remember the technical term, but I mean, they are built to be like operate within heavy regulations, like on the regulatory environment. So like this is nothing new for them. So it's very easy for them to prove like no, this is not rooted in anything like that can be substantial. So no, I'm not worried for the share price. But you start to wonder, like, why is this coming right now? Who is behind this? Like you start to be like, is this some Soros attack? Like we used to have media attacks like funded by Soros, but at this point, like it just seems way bigger than that. And you start to wonder, like, what's going on here? And I don't have the answer. I'm not too worried. I as an investor, I try to focus, what is the business doing? Where is the business headed? And that's the way that I keep saying, like, I don't really worry too much about headlines and stuff like that is not rooted in the actual product. Like you shouldn't just ignore everything, because this could have been something real if it was a different company, but at this point it's not. So I just kind of blocked it out of my mind. I don't really care. I just think it's funny how Palantir is like engaging, like, yeah, okay, we invite you to come and visit. And then just quickly on the New York Times, it was so funny because when the New York Times broke the article, Palantir put out the bounty, like, okay, who can name the most inaccuracies with this article? We're going to give you an interview with Karp. You have 90 seconds to point out all the flaws in the article. And then even the employees took to Twitter and they're like, yeah, Palantir doesn't collect your data and sell it, but New York Times does. And then they like posted like the terms of service from New York Times, and it was like, oh man, it was some of the best day on X in recent times to see like Chad break down the New York Times terms of service and finding stuff. So yeah,
dude, and they gave an internship to the guy who figured out all the technical problems.
Oh really? I didn't see that. Good job. But yeah, no, I'm not worried. I don't think it will impact the stock price negatively. It seems to have done the opposite and actually impacted it positively. For AOC and Elizabeth Warren, That one is weird. I can buy New York Times, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think about AOC and Elizabeth Warren and why they are targeting Palantir as well.
I will go real quick on AOC and Warren, and then Arnie, I'll give it to you. I think these politicians are wasting our tax dollars. They have absolutely nothing to do. Actually, no, they have a lot of things to do, but they act as if the things that they're doing are more important than what they actually have to do. The thing that's so silly about this is that the article is stupid. We know the article is stupid. It's important to be skeptical and ask questions of tech companies, but you have to have some level of journalistic integrity that shows you actually kind of have an idea what you're talking about versus just your bland skepticism. That article is pure bullshit. For AOC and Warren, who we pay their salaries, they're supposed to be representing us to try to make America better in whatever way you want to define that. For them to be saying, hey, the New York Times put out a clickbait article, and now we are demanding that Palantir show up to Congress to give us all this information. I think it's laughable. I think it is emblematic of the fact that they are egotistical maniacs. And I say that with no hesitation because they are realizing Palantir is getting a lot of attention right now. They want to take advantage of being at the spotlight of that attention. The left and the right are united on this big, evil boogeyman company trying to steal everyone's data. And if AOC or Warren is the poster child for that, it makes them look good on both sides. And they get a lot of attention from that. So I think this is a disgrace to Americans that they went this route, especially because they know it's full of shit. And the reason I'm so confident saying it's full of shit, if you read the letter, which we read live on the Market Open on Tuesday, the first part of the letter says, we demand all of Palantir's public contracts with the government to be disclosed with us. That's available. Go Carp, post them every single day. The public contract from the NIH and the CDC, all of that's available. So to me, their interns could have found these answers in a couple of ChatGPT searches, and the fact they went this route seems to be purely attention seeking. Arnie, your take on what's going on with the New York Times?
Am I wrong saying that question is already paradoxical because it already underscores why Palantir is needed in the government, because probably neither of them could really assess easily, okay, but what exactly are we paying Palantir for?
I mean, it goes to show, hey, maybe if you had Palantir and actually had a real searchable database integrated in the government, you'd have a better chance to see those contracts. But Arnie, do you think that this is political? Do you think they're getting paid by someone, or do you think that they're just bored and they want attention?
I think a bit the combination. I think it makes sense that someone pushed maybe toward that agenda, maybe pushed a bit more towards, okay, you're New York Times, maybe you have the right journal to keep pushing the story. But at the end of the day, for us, it doesn't really matter. What I personally find it very interesting is attacks like that are not really new for Palantir. At the beginning, I didn't really pay that much attention. I felt like, okay, that's just another attack. I was personally surprised to see how much more reactions, all the chain of reactions that this triggered, actually distorting the reality even more. So the first article from the News Time was distorted, but then the reactions were even more distorted. Like they started writing literally articles like, okay, Palantir is building a database to spy. Like the title was already having a very strong opinion, and then you check, okay, but what are the true facts? And it was all speculation. What I find important on our side is, yes, these attacks have been kind of the norm in the past years, a lot of controversies, but now I'm seeing the company reacting in a very different way compared with what we were used to see at the beginning, where the attacks were there, but Palantir initially was calmer. I think we saw a better reaction than with NHS, where Palantir tried to prove their points. And now they're not only proving their points, like they're literally counter-attacking the attack. So it's like, okay, come and see us straight. So they're literally transforming this attack actually into positive marketing, from what I'm seeing. And that is very, very positive. Simple note, Anita, do you remember the questions that were in the end, apart from that, what are the government contracts? Because I remember I was lucky to see the live with you. And I remember like there were some questions that you were also like, are they really asking this stuff? Like the 7th one, like how many Palantir employees have quit since January?
Yeah, this one I lost my shit, bro. How many Palantir employees have quit since Trump got elected? It's like, really? We're going to use individuals' political beliefs. The average age on a Palantir employee, I think, is like in their mid-20s. People that haven't even developed their full political beliefs. You're going to use them as justification for why the company is so evil that these 23-year-olds that don't know anything about the world feel this moral responsibility that they have to leave the company. It's like, what is going on here?
You know, it kind of dawned on me after my turn. So I'll just add, like, I felt like, well, this kind of reminds me of something, and I thought of it. So the reason I think is that AOC and Warren are going after this is because it's the popular thing to discuss, right? It makes sense that they are here to protect us from evil Palantir. Now, they have no idea what Palantir is. That's obvious, but it reminded me of a similar situation, and that is when Robinhood and Citadel had to appear in front of officials, and they were asked in regards to payment for order flow. In reality, payment for order flow is very beneficial to the users of these platforms. Like, it is very beneficial to you as an investor that payment for order flow exists. It pushes down, like, and perfects the markets where there's very, very small spread because each market maker has to undercut each other. So that's why, like, Robinhood makes like no money from equities, even though like the equity volume is massive. The markets are just so perfected, and that's thanks to payment for order flow. But they still had to appear in front of Congress, where people have no idea what they're talking about, and questioning like Ken Griffin from Citadel and Vlad from Robinhood and some other representatives. And this kind of reminds me of that. It's like, that was a big thing then because of the GME stuff. Like, that was bad. Removing a sell button and stuff like that's bad. But that's a separate discussion. Like, what they were questioned about had nothing like to do with anything based in reality. And now this Palantir thing is the same thing. Like, this is not rooted in reality, but it is a big story in media. So I think they're trying to get cheap votes, like cheap popularity points, by bringing this up. And as you guys mentioned, like, they didn't even take 5 minutes to, like, the very first question is like publicly available information from various like agencies. You can go to usaspending.gov and look up each contract or wherever you want to go. Like, this is available to you. So yeah, I think it's just a cheap attempt of what's hype in the moment. I don't think they actually care too much or even like expect any kind of response from Palantir. I'm not even sure what they're expecting to get out of this.
They got what they're expecting. We're talking about it right now. We're talking about it, about two uneducated government officials that don't know anything about what Palantir does, let alone how it's used, and have plenty of other things that they should be fixing in their own states that they are not doing. So it's just a big ploy for, attention. What's a little concerning is just that how that spreads so fast. I'm not worried about the stock and how the company's, the company's gonna be fine, and the stock will too. But how it just spreads. The New York Times has no education on anything, just throws something out there, and then you see all these like other people out there as influencers and podcasters. Like, I don't know if you guys saw, like, Theo Vaughn or whatever had like a 13-minute spiel about how he's concerned about Palantir and the data that they have, and it's like, bro, like, I know you want some more views, but like, if you're gonna talk about something like that, like, go do some.
But that is the reason that these big podcasts. I mean, Theo Vaughn has had JD Vance, had Trump. I mean, he is a very big podcaster. He needs content, so he's going to latch onto the story. But this is where everyone has to
your homework.
Themselves. I mean, he's a comedian. He's not going to know the most about Palantir. That's not his job, right?
Yeah.
But I think Theo Vaughn, to his defense, he doesn't approach these topics like he's some kind of expert. He's like, well, I have JD on, he has some ties. Let me ask you, JD, about this. It's a big thing in the media. So I kind of forgive Theo Vaughn for that. Like, he gave JD Vance a fair chance to respond. He didn't push too hard. So I don't think that was... But yeah, I almost forgot. I was like, damn, Theo Vaughn even talked about this? Like,
he not only talked about it with Vance, but then he had a follow-up with some I don't know what side of the aisle they are on, but some government official on another pod. I just saw it posted like earlier today. It was like 13 minutes long, and he was just like, I just didn't get the answer I wanted from Vance. Like I don't that concerns me about this $113 million contract that they got and them having our data. Like then he started talking about like social credit scores and stuff. I'm like, guys, like they don't even have this.
My comments only are in relation to the JD Vance interview. I might have to retract this. I might have to retract my comments after seeing the new one.
Look, at the end of the day, these politicians are like analysts. They need to push some narrative to get attention. It's simple as that. If they see an opportunity to add some fuel on something that is already controversial, they will try to make it burn. For us, I think it doesn't really matter. It's important to see what I said before, like how the company responds. And I think the company has responded very, very well. Like that's something I didn't think Palantir could do, of inviting the New York Times representative to talk directly with the management, because that transformed literally an attack into, okay, if the New York Times actually says no, it is like they are so scared of the truth that they are just the newspaper that attacks but then doesn't want to verify. If they verify, what can they say? It's like, okay, we saw actually stuff are online, so we are bullshitters, but just like to move interest.
For us Europeans, is the New York Times the biggest publication in the US?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you got the Washington Post, you got the Los Angeles Times, but when the New York Times has a headline, even if people have started not caring as much about their legitimacy, the headline will make headlines. And for some reason, this headline, they have a lot of headlines every day, but like, the tariff stuff, Elon, Trump, all this, but like this was kind of an opinionated piece, but not an opinionated piece because they were reporting, but they obviously had an angle to the story. And for some reason, this is why the idea that a hedge fund paid to get this out, like everyone from the left and the right comes together to talk about big, scary pound. It was weird. Like the proliferation of media happened in front of us, and it was very weird for people that have studied the company for years.
Can I say
Let's talk about AIPCon.
All right, Arnie, last comment, then we'll...
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's the degree with which, like the degree of awareness with which Vance talked, but from how he was talking, it seems that it's actually true that Palantir is getting some very important contracts behind the surface. So the title is Palantir is compiling data on all Americans, but what Vance was trying to share is no different from actually what is truly needed, that if you want to have a safe and fast operations on the government side, be that the CIA, Department of Home Security, stuff like that, you actually need these departments to share the information that is truly needed for investigators to do their job. And from what Vance said, it seems Palantir is really getting toward that. He didn't say, yes, we gave a Palantir a contract, but he was speaking as if, yes, what is triggering the speculation, the controversy, actually is actually grounded by some truth that Palantir is working on something. It's only how this something is perceived. And at the end of the day is the same controversy of the NHS deal. Back then, we just had another attacker, but the overall picture is Palantir is working toward making a federated database to help the NHS essentially use one platform rather than infinite platforms that helps the NHS use all the information that the NHS has towards these hospitals, so that the synergies are unlocked. And the dynamic here is the same. You have these departments that have their own silos, and unless you are able to find a way to integrate this stuff, and we're not talking about building a database to spy, it's literally connecting what the government already has captured. So if you really want to be aggressive on someone, you need to be aggressive on the government because it has your own data. But without having your own data, it can't provide you the services that makes a good government.
You have to be an anarchist, essentially, to believe in what the New York Times is saying.
You essentially need to be stupid in thinking the government can work well if they can't help you with the data that affects you. Because the idea is you need to unlock the value that is there, but you can't capture it because the data doesn't flow where it needs to be flow so that the government can provide you a good service.
No, but you're so right. I did some Twitter spaces over the past couple of weeks talking with people on the other side of this, and like you're listening to other people and you're like, my goodness, like you're just not smart about this topic. Like you have not actually thought it through, and that's okay. But it's like the headline spreads like wildfire. And if that becomes the narrative, when people think that either the government shouldn't have our data or that the government having our data is bad, it's like there's a nuance to this that is really important, and people don't want to think about that.
Isn't it interesting, guys? Typically, I refrain from talking on things I have no idea about. But it seems like a lot of people are very keen on rushing to talk about things that they have no clue about. I don't know. Kind of interesting there.
Welcome to the mass media.
All right, last topic for the day, AIPCon. Let's hear some clips. Here is Carp at AIPCon talking about essentially the trajectory of where Palantir is going.
With your sized revenue. And then you guys can also get up and pull the freak show act that I am and tell people who are insulting our country and who are against meritocracy and against free speech, whatever you want to tell them. Whatever you want to tell them, you get the freedom, because if you have 71% growth in US commercial and 45% growth in government like we do, and you have a rule of 83 or anything close to that, especially with the rule of everything, you get freedom. And I'll tell you, everyone here, you're tired of that BS investor who has no idea what they're talking about? You want to grow your company because you're a world-class investor even quicker? You're tired of having some analyst who woke up on the wrong side of bed and decided they didn't like you because they didn't get into your company, or they don't like you because you're not cool enough? You're tired, in our case, of being attacked by people who seemingly can't go online and spend 5 minutes looking at our architecture, but are so committed to being a product of their own weak, thin religion that they're motivated by being poorer and hurting us. You have the freedom to tell those people to go back and suffer and fail on their own because of your unit economics. And we are going to help you get there, because that is a better world for you and a much better world for us.
So very passionate in terms of this idea of we are going to make you better. And you can tell he was really pissed off about the New York Times. And he's kind of saying, hey, people can say whatever they want. If you're winning, they can't say shit, because like numbers don't lie. And if you're winning, it's hard for people to take you down. So Dom, your take on what Carp said. Obviously, there were a lot of interviews. I posted an interview on my channel. It's an hour long about Citibank and Nestle and all these different companies that work with Palantir. And so essentially the TLDR for all of them is this is the real deal, and we want to expand our partnership with Palantir. Your take on AIPCon, Dom?
Well, first, I'm just jealous that you get to go every year. I'm just like,
it is a deep privilege, and I'm very, very
every time I see you interviewing people, I'm like, damn, I should have just kept with YouTube and just switched careers. Like, I'm jealous. You and Arnie hanging out with Carp, like, oh, the jealousy is mad FOMO.
Resist it, Tom. They are paid shills. Only me and you are pure and neutral here. These two are shills paid for.
No, I mean, I love the passion, and I love just the, like, remember when we were talking about this in like early 2020, 2021, like we really didn't see the business side of Carp. And this transformation happened as they got profitable. I have to think there were just, I don't know who he talked with, but his demeanor and what he talked about and how he incorporated still his philosophies and his beliefs, but also with the business acumen into what's going to happen, how the company's going to grow. And now he's taking a step further, thinking, how is, you know, the customer going to benefit and reach these outcomes? And it is music to Wall Street's ears when they hear people say, like, what we did in this AIP boot camp, we did in 5 days, we've been trying to do for 2 years, you know? Like, I'll never forget our first AIP boot camp when we saw those quotes from CEOs and other individuals, like, yeah, this city one, yeah, let's just play that. That was awesome.
I'm taking us from defense and broken band-aids, bubblegum, and duct tape to offense. And how do we use this data to inform our advisors and make them go faster? It's like Superman or Superwoman. I'm just giving them a cape to actually know what to talk to their clients about. So like I said, and like Alex said, I came to dominate, crush, and annihilate. So if you're JP Morgan, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, sorry.
Dude, and so I sat down with that guy, interviewed him. He's competitive. He wants to win. And I think the reason he has the freedom to speak as abrasively as he does, not only is his internal dynamics incredibly competitive, but he has the tech. He has the software to have a competitive advantage. And I think that's what Karp was trying to get across as well. Arnie, your take on AIPCon and some of these customer testimonials we got.
I was thinking about this guy from Citi, and made me realize really why it is good that I didn't pursue a career in banking, because I could have never won against someone who's so convinced into telling you, like, we are here to dominate, crush, annihilate you. It's like, wow. And that part I think was my favorite part, for a simple reason. We have been used now to see very good KPIs from Palantir, what he's sharing and so on. And true, like, the results are impressive. You shared before also from the government side, true impressive reduction of speed, blah, blah, blah. But what's truly more impressive is now we are so used to this that we tend to lose perspective. Meanwhile, I'm seeing Emir suffering from having the sun in his eyes. So a couple of years ago, when we were looking at the first FoundryCons, like Tyson Food, we were so excited thinking, oh, this is like 20-30% improvement in speed, 20-30%. Now we're talking about 500x, 10x improvements in terms of time. Like, wait a second. If it was already insanely valuable before, how insanely valuable is right now? We need to remember that at the end of the day, especially how Palantir is now pricing their contracts, from what we read from the UBS reports, Palantir pricing is more based on the consumption. Being aligned to the consumption of the clients, it means that Palantir just needs to be more used. So that is the true important information. If clients are getting these results and getting these results fast, the usage of Palantir inside the company is really fueled. It's like you don't need to spend too much time trying to convince anyone inside the company of, okay, you need to deploy this tool. Once you say, okay, I use this tool, what took me 60 days, now it takes me seconds. Like, that's it. Try to give me more. And yeah, giving me more means more consumption, means more adoption, and creates this feedback loop. Personally, I also liked how Palantir is communicating. Like, the presentations, I think, were structured very well. Long, perfect length. They were clear and they were output focused. So I found them very well. I also appreciated much the introduction. It was something simple, but it made very good content, and I think clients could have appreciated a lot when the intro was starting with, I don't think win, lose, I think in domination, and there were some exclamations, and then there was that moment of Fannie Mae's manager, I think it was, saying, we literally went from spending weeks to boom, seconds. Holy boom!
Yeah, and the beat drops. It was, I mean, dude, like, the testimonials are raking up, and as Amir said, there's only 800 customers. So imagine the testimonials when there's 8,000, and we know they're going to have 8,000 customers one day. That will happen, and when it does, it's just going to be incredible.
Let me just ask Arnie on the, yeah, as you mentioned, like we don't truly know, but based on some Wall Street reports that did interviews, it seems that it is like Palantir is pricing based on usage. So if you incorporate AIP for only one business case inside of your company, Palantir might only get a little bit of revenue. But if you incorporate it throughout your whole business, like Palantir could like 3x the revenue easily. But after hearing Carp talk, do you believe that they will switch to a result-based pricing model? Because like you don't mind paying 10 billion for a software that brings you in 500 billion, like, or this is an extreme example, but do you think that they're going to change their pricing strategy once again, going from no pricing strategy to usage based to result based? Because as Carp says, like, yeah, we are expensive, but look at what you're getting for that expense. Like, it kind of makes sense if they are making these bold claims that might change in the future. And maybe that is the case for other suites of their product, but simply AIP is usage based because, you have to get the tokens and stuff like that from various models and things like that. But do you believe that we're going to see result based pricing?
I'm not
Kind of
sure.
makes sense with the narrative that they are saying, like, yeah, okay, pay us 100 million if we bring in 1 billion. Like,
I think Dom is the best person for
Yeah, I
this
can.
question.
Yeah, they're already really doing that. And what I mean by that is that the use cases that they have is going to dictate what users that they are licensing for consumption and the problem that they're solving. So if it's a giant problem or an organizationally wide problem, you're going to need the whole organization and data on this ontology together to get the full problem solved. So you're going to pay a lot more. So I think the way I see it is that I don't see the pricing changing at all. The only roadblock that I see, and I don't know if Chad can comment on this, but I've talked to others about this, is you only have so many forward deployed engineers, and they do such a phenomenal job of understanding these problems that they get paid to solve and figure out and do homework, like I guess this is a good segue. I'll be really quick. I was at a cybersecurity conference, a Gartner security conference in Maryland, and I go on the bus. I see this old guy here. He's a really cool guy, and we're just talking about cybersecurity. And he works for an energy company, and then he was like, yeah, we just got done, with this other implementation, and it was the best experience ever, and I was like, well, what software was he? He was like, Palantir. I lit up like Christmas. I was like a little schoolboy. I was so happy. I was like, tell me more.
is that like the first time in the wild that you meet like someone?
Out of like, it was my judgment. I was so judgmental of like, never judge a book by its cover, because like I didn't know if he even knew what Palantir was or anything like that. And when we were talking about software, and then he brings it up and he's like, no, we just completed something with them. And then we were talking about the forward deployed engineers, talking about that experience, how great it was, the ROI, how they want to have other use cases now that they want to expand into. Now, the challenge in that example was that now they have to show, okay, we did get this ROI from this smaller deployment, but getting them to really understand the bigger ROI in a full deployment and these other problems. With smaller customers, I think that's still a challenge, because at the end of the day, forward deployed engineers have to move and bounce between customers to customers. And right now, with how few there are, I'm sure they're getting assigned to the biggest deals, the most important missions, the biggest contracts. So you may solve a use case for a smaller customer, but then get reassigned to a big case. And so I don't know what kind of churn that does, or what kind of experience that does per se,
Yeah.
But I would say, you're just like, what's the number one challenge that Palantir faces? I would say hiring the same level of high quality people that they have, keeping the culture intact, and having more FDEs that they can continue the FDE model. That's why, they did the whole skip college, come to Palantir. Hey, that's a pretty good marketing way to get to the talent when it's young, fresh, bushy-eyed, like ready to go and groom them up and teach them, and that's a good strategy.
And they are also kind of hyping up AI FTEs as well lately.
Yeah,
I don't know
Lunar
what
actually
what
just
that will
said it,
look
and I
like.
totally forgot to mention it. They're looking at like evolving that with AI agents for FD. So yeah, I totally skipped over that. They're definitely looking at that as another way to solve for that too.
Okay, well, let me give some quick thoughts on AIPCon. First of all, I was kind of surprised that it was not live. It kind of sprung out of nowhere. This can you guys hear me? I'm kind of trying to dodge the sun. What the fuck? Okay, so of course, people who watch Amit had some sort of warning that it was happening because Amit was suddenly gone without disclosing why. That typically means that he's either being flown out by Vlad or by Palantir. And
to point of clarification, Palantir has not paid for my flight or hotel ever for AIPCon. I've always paid for it myself. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you. But we like, the point I'm making is that I could not really get as hype as per usual because it kind of dropped like in segments. We got the carp speech, had to wait a few days for Amit's interviews. Like, it's not really the same experience, and I could not really get hype. Like, you want to have that one sitting where you're just like, okay, let me focus on this and like take everything in. When it's spread out like this, I personally could not feel the same kind of hype. But overall for AIPCon, like same as always, we already know that Palantir can be applied to any use case in any industry. I mean, they have shown this for 7 AIPcons. So I like the technical details of the demos. They're not really too important for investors. Like, we already know. It is more so inspiration for, various businesses that are attending and watching to get, their aha moment. Like, oh, we could do that with Palantir. So this is more about showcasing different use cases. But what I focus on as an investor, and what I believe most Palantir investors focus on, is the universal language of time. And we had some examples like Citi, 9 days to seconds. Like that is powerful. And we also had the Fannie Mae mortgage fraud case that they did like televised. Like, yeah, it takes fraud experts 9 months to sit and find fraud. It takes 10 seconds for Palantir. Like, this kind of like... everyone speaks time. Like, when you hear stuff like that, that's the really powerful stuff for the investor base. Like, the technical stuff, I never really cared too much about, like how they're showcasing, yeah, we integrate this with this, and then we can extrapolate this and get this. Like, that's not too important. But as Arnie mentioned, like, when they showcase the outcomes, that's what you really should get hype about as an investor. And I think it was really powerful. I can't really recall any other that really stood out for me. I know Hertz was there and a bunch of others, but I mean, yeah, really the Citi one and the Fannie Mae one were highlights for me. And yeah, I just wish they did it live. Do you know why, or is it something that you can speak about, Amit, like why it wasn't live this time? Because that's kind of like you get the whole investor base hyped and talking about something. I don't really get why they segmented it out like this.
I have no idea. I got there. I thought it was going to be live too. When I got there, they were like, no, it's pre-recorded. I'm like,
I think it was due to the controversy, because especially since it was exactly the days where everybody seemed to be raging against the Palantir. If there is an AIPCon and, it's typically done in the same place, you could potentially know, oh, there is this event, let's organize and boycott them, something like that. It already happened before, so probably they just wanted to avoid that. Can I say something that I think went under the radar, but for me, as an Italian, that was very important. Palantir announced this partnership with Federiconi, and probably none of you knows it. Many people in Italy don't know it, but for people that are more in the business side, that maybe had the opportunity to study some companies in the sector, that this company is the absolute leader of specialty papers.
Did you know about this company when they announced it, Arnie?
Yes, and I know how strong it is, because
is this just quickly, is this the you know the scene in American Psycho where they get out to their business cards? Is this the kind of company you get to like do the business cards? Do you know what scene I'm talking about?
No, these guys do the most difficult pieces of papers you could do. Thinking like, imagine very, very high-end luxury paper. So the packages of very high-end luxury papers. Think of the papers that are needed for very high-level professionals. There, I have been told it was also related for the, the passport has a specific kind of paper, stuff like that. So that is the level of client that we're talking about. Is a $2 billion company in terms of revenue, some 800 million in terms of EBITDA. So it is very big for Italy. It's not very big for the US.
They do 800 million of revenue?
No, 2 billion in revenue.
Oh, dude, I didn't know they were that big.
They are very big, and they are the absolute leader in this space. I know that because the first job, literally the first stuff that I did as an analyst was a benchmarking analysis of all these players. So I was studying this company, Reno de' Medici, which is still a paper maker, but on the low end. And we needed to compare essentially all the paper makers that were listed. And this name, Fedrigoni, was not public, is not public still, but we could see like the reference numbers. And this company that we were studying mainly as the core company, Reno de' Medici, had absolute very bad numbers compared with these guys, Fedrigoni, because these guys were managed very well previously. Then they were bought by a private equity, Bain Capital, which is probably the best private equity investor when they buy a new company. So it was like, wait a second, like these guys truly rock. They had been bought by a tier 1 client, by a tier 1 private equity. And we know Palantir is also having a partnership with Bain Consulting, which is a different company, but is still somehow related to those guys, because I think they were born from the same DNA. So it's like, wait, like this is a constellation of things happening. And this to me is a very, very strong signal, because these guys really represent the perfect client they could have in Europe. So I think Palantir is playing a content strategy here. There was a period where they were really pushing towards, okay, look how active we are on the US commercial side. Bam, 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 bam. And now they're signaling, wait a second, we got UniCredit making a partnership. We got Societe Generale, another big bank, making a partnership. So financial sector is actually alive, is taking off. These guys are manufacturing, high quality manufacturing, absolute leaders in Europe, if not global wide. They are using Palantir. So this could be a signal that maybe something is happening in Europe.
Yeah.
And, to be honest, if somehow Palantir in Europe starts taking traction like the US side, we're not talking about a 30% expected growth any longer. Like, even if it grows a little bit less than US commercial, still we are talking about 40-50% revenue growth for a long time. And it's not a matter of Palantir not being needed. Actually, I think it is even more needed. It's only a matter of this stuff exists, this stuff is useful, I can deploy it. And you really need, like, I think the difference is in US, when something works, everybody wants it. In Europe, the perspective is a bit different. You wait until someone who's respected does that, because we are more risk adverse. So this to me is a very strong signal.
No, you're spot on with that. And two, it was a multi-year partnership. So they jumped into the deep end quickly. And then they said their focus was digital transformation, but also operational excellence. And shout outs to Laura in the chat. She said in this space, it's all about operational efficiencies. And straight from the CIO, he said, we're building a data-driven organization. Optimizing stock levels is only the beginning. This partnership empowers us to explore new frontiers of digital transformation. So, when you think about logistics and data in general, I mean, this is kind of a more boring use case, but at the end of the day, they were growing 15% year over year, their revenues last year. If they can improve their margins and improve how fast they get stuff to customers and drive sales, they could double that. And once again, it's those outcomes like Amir was talking about.
Look, these guys are the perfect client. Very complex and specialized manufacturer. So they do have a lot of manufacturing processes, but also they have to manage a lot of complexity with their raw materials. They need to have all these relationships with the suppliers, and then all the other corporate functions that you always have. I can imagine this client being the signal also for warp speed. Like when we are talking about these manufacturers, I can't help thinking of warp speed. That is literally what is needed to revitalize the US manufacturing. I think we will see also more push toward warp speed being the manufacturer, not only to help manufacture not only the US reindustrialization, but I think probably also the European, the South Asia, and so on.
All right, there we go. It was a bit of a 2-week break, but we are back. We'll be back next week. AIPCon, New York Times, all this stuff has been happening. I just, I think I can say on behalf of all of us, it's been a crazy journey past couple of years.
Yeah.
It's just, I was actually getting a drink with someone in New York, GoCarp, Adam. You guys have seen him on the channel, and he, he's been in Palantir since 2021, 2022. And we were just talking about it, and he's dedicated a large part of his life to understanding this company. And so many of us have, and it's created this special community. And, we were talking about, could we find another Palantir again? And I don't know if the stars aligned to find another Palantir in terms of the community, the stock, the company, the moat. So we got to cherish the one that we have.
Yeah. And also too, I know we didn't get to talk about it tonight, but I saw you post about it, Amit. The US did take care of business. So hopefully there's no nuclear capabilities moving.
Oh, you got muted, Dom. You muted yourself.
Out of Iran. And I'm sure Palantir helped with making sure we were successful in all of that.
300 times, baby. It's not for nothing.
It's hard to imagine Palantir was not involved.
Yeah.
Weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about very specific kind of attacks.
Yeah. All right. That's it for us. Thank everybody. Appreciate you all taking the time. Everyone's Twitter and YouTube's in the description. We will see you guys next Friday on Palantir Weekly.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.